The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly. Stars glittered like frozen fragments of light. On a distant world scorched by heat and battered by storms, the Deathworlders thrived. Their resilience was unmatched, their determination unyielding. For centuries, they had survived against odds that would crush lesser species, yet their isolation had forged a reputation of fear. Tales of their brutality rippled across the galaxy. Other species kept their distance. Whispers of Deathworlders became warnings among the stars. One day, a signal broke through the cold silence of space. It carried desperation, a plea from a fragile world teetering on the brink of annihilation. The Galvalin, a race known for their frailty, had been invaded, their peaceful lives shattered by the relentless force of the Ivalic. These marauders showed no mercy. Their weapons burned through cities, their warships blotted out the skies. The Galvalin's own defenses crumbled like sand under a tidal wave. They reached out across the stars. Their message, a desperate cry for help, found its way to the Deathworlders. On their unforgiving planet, the message was received. It was decoded and deliberated. The Council of Survival, an assembly of the most hardened leaders, convened. They argued over whether the plea was worth answering. Some saw it as a trap. Others deemed it a waste of their resources. But a voice rose among them, a young strategist named Kael. His argument was simple. Their strength was not just a shield, but a responsibility. To wield power and ignore those in need was cowardice. He swayed the council. Reluctantly, they agreed. The fleet was mobilized, warships built for survival in the harshest conditions ignited their engines. Crews of Deathworlders prepared for battle. They wore armor that bore the scars of countless battles. Their faces were etched with determination. As the ships launched, Kael stood at the helm of the flagship Resolute. His eyes burned with purpose. His voice echoed through the comm channels. Today we show the galaxy what Deathworlders truly are. Not monsters, not savages, but warriors who fight for more than themselves. The journey to Galvalis was long. Along the way, the fleet encountered remnants of Ivalic forces. Each skirmish tested their resolve. Each victory steeled their hearts. The Deathworlders fought with a ferocity that shook their enemies. News of their approach spread faster than light. The Ivalic prepared for war. The Galvalin watched with a mix of hope and fear. Could these warriors from the Deathworld truly be their salvation? When the fleet arrived above Galvalis, the sight was grim. Smoke rose from the planet. Cities lay in ruins. The Ivalic fleet hung in orbit like vultures. Kael wasted no time. Orders were swift. Target their flagship, cripple their formation, protect the planet below. The battle that followed was a symphony of chaos. Cannons roared. Fighters darted through space. Deathworlder ships shrugged off blows that would devastate others. Their technology, honed by millennia of survival, proved superior. The flagship Resolute clashed directly with the Ivalic command vessel. Kael led the charge. He pushed his ship to its limits. His crew fought with unyielding resolve. The Ivalic commander, being known for his cunning, faced an opponent he could not outwit. The Deathworlders' relentless assault overwhelmed his defenses. With a final strike, the command vessel erupted into flames. Its debris scattered into the void. With their leadership destroyed, the Evalic forces faltered. The Deathworlders pressed their advantage. In hours, the tide of battle turned. The Evalic retreated, their invasion shattered. The Galvalin watched in awe as the Deathworlders secured their skies. For the first time in months, their planet was free. Kael descended to the surface. He walked among the ruins. Galvalin survivors emerged cautiously. Their wide eyes took in the imposing figure of their savior. One of them, a child, approached him. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Why did you come?" Kael knelt. His armor scraped against the ground. He replied softly, "Because no one should face the darkness alone." The Deathworlders stayed long enough to help the Galvalin rebuild. They shared knowledge. They offered guidance. Then, as silently as they arrived, they departed. The galaxy took notice. The tales of Deathworlders shifted. They were no longer just survivors of a brutal world. They became symbols of hope, proof that even in the harshest of places, heroes could rise. And as they returned to their world, the Deathworlders carried with them the weight of a new purpose: to protect those who could not protect themselves, to answer the calls that reached across the stars. Months passed since the events at Galvalis. The galaxy was abuzz with stories of the Deathworlders. Diplomats from various factions reached out cautiously. Some offered alliances, others sought protection. Yet, the Deathworlders remained selective. They refused to be drawn into petty squabbles or political games. Their mission was clear: to act when the innocent faced annihilation, to strike only when the cause was just. Kael, meanwhile, had become a figure of legend. His name was spoken with reverence. On the Deathworld, he worked tirelessly. He oversaw the training of new recruits. He improved the fleet's capabilities. He prepared for the inevitable day when another call for help would come. His dreams were haunted by the faces of those he could not save, but they also drove him forward. Failure was a lesson, not an end. One evening, as Kael stood under the harsh red sky of his homeworld, another signal reached the Deathworlders. This time it came from a coalition of species under siege by an ancient enemy, the Tarkath. These creatures were remnants of a forgotten war, machines driven by a cold, unyielding logic. Their goal was the eradication of organic life. The coalition's fleets were shattered, their colonies burned. Hope was slipping away. Kael listened to the message. His resolve hardened. He gathered the council once more. The debate was shorter this time. The Deathworlders' role in the galaxy was becoming undeniable. The fleet prepared once more. As the engines roared to life, Kael addressed his people. "The darkness does not rest, nor will we. We fight not for glory, not for conquest, but because we are needed. Let the stars remember the Deathworlders, not for the fear we inspired, but for the hope we carried." The fleet launched into the void. Their journey was fraught with challenges. Asteroid fields threatened their path. Tarkath drones intercepted their advance, yet the Deathworlders pressed on, their determination unyielding. They reached the coalition's remaining stronghold. Just as it faced its final assault, the Tarkath forces were overwhelming, their ships vast and cold, like tombs drifting in the void. Kael's strategy was bold. He divided his fleet. One group lured the Tarkath into a trap. Another struck at their central command node. The battle was brutal, ships were lost, lives were sacrificed, yet the Deathworlders' resilience proved decisive. Kael himself led the final strike against the Tarkath's central AI core. With precise strikes, the core was destroyed. The Tarkath forces collapsed, their logic severed. The coalition was saved. Their leaders expressed profound gratitude, but Kael's focus was elsewhere. He looked at the survivors. He saw their pain, their loss, and he vowed silently to continue fighting for those who could not. The Deathworlders departed once more, their legend growing with every act. The galaxy watched, and in the hearts of many hope burned brighter, for they knew that as long as the Deathworlders lived, no call for help would go unanswered.